Thank you very much, the Royal Parade Commander. You may please move, please.
Including very germane issues that border on the development of this country as part of the orientation course. This means that management and administrators of the Corps is aware and conversant with issues plaguing the state, and they are desirous to contribute to solving the problem. I also like to say that, for me, when the celebrated writer and great sociologist Frank Fanon postulated that every generation of people out of relative obscurity discover their mission, and that they either fulfill it or betray it, he was making a statement that is neither restricted by geographical jurisdiction nor restricted by chronological calculation. That statement has universal applicability and gains even more currency in our own Nigeria. Ours is a society where there is the unholy amalgam between extreme abundance and intolerable wants, between enviable wealth and unenviable misery, a nation where crime and criminality receives unpretentious social endorsement, while genuine industry and righteousness get the scorn. A nation where the hitherto revered conscience and custodians and even officers in the temple of justice have conspired to betray justice for a measure of porridge. Incidentally, that is the society you have all signed out to serve for the next 1 year. I'd like to implore you that in the course of this 1 year, you should give your all to ensure that this country works. And some of us found ourselves where we are to fulfill a purpose. And so we see ourselves as people who are called to national service. And so it is important to realize that 52 years after independence, as we will soon celebrate, the Nigerian state is still plagued by a plague of plagues. We have a traumatized and rent-seeking economy, overbloated bureaucracy, inefficient public service, insensate executive, weak legislature, frail judiciary, complex and cumbersome legal system, murky electoral process, battered foreign image, corrupt police force, over-ambitious military, decayed public and social infrastructure, low capacity utilization, and so on and so forth. These are clearly symptomatic of a nation on the verge of collapse. Nigeria as a state is blessed with favorable flora and fauna and sit atop a geographical location that is devoid of natural disasters like wild winds, earthquakes, and others. But today, the country has found herself in the unenviable company of the poorest nations of the world. When the World Bank released its report in 2005 titled, "Where is the Wealth of Nation? Measuring Capitals in the 21st Century?" That document cited Nigeria as a resource-dependent nation that will have developed 5 times than it did coming into 2005 if moderate efforts were made to manage our resources properly. It is a certain fact that by far corruption remains Nigeria's greatest problem. In discussions generally, among scholars and even among the ordinary people, there is a convergence of opinion that corruption is at the intersection of Nigeria's development. I don't know a other simple analogy, but the fact that as a people, we have all seen government, in quote, as a big thief that has stolen from us. And each time our wards are elected or appointed, we expect them to steal from the big thief, in quote. And in some societies where the persons are able to steal with amazing efficiency, we change the thief to a thief, and the person becomes a chief. And so a man is a secondary school principal, is lucky to be appointed a Minister of State for Health. He returns home 2 months later with a Hummer Jeep, dressed with 15 yards of brocade and a gallon of starch on it, and we line up to, welcome him as an illustrious son. We troop to welcome him as a model of excellence, without necessarily linking the fact that the woman who died yesterday, because there was no genuine Panadol in the village dispensary, it was because this man had collected bribe from what people he was supposed to superintend. Until we are able to link or connect this missing link, we will continue in this vicious circle. Corruption is the reason why Nigeria is still being touted as a potentially rich country. Today, graduates from all over the country migrate from their rustic backgrounds to the urban centers in search of greener pastures, as it's called. A lot of people come thinking that the cities are paved with gold. Unfortunately, they arrive some cities and discover that the cities are not even paved at all, and they are the ones who are expected to do the paving. And so they end up in construction sites, they end up as urban desperados, they end up in menial jobs and all that. Today, scavengers who are graduates are seen dressed in rag, sack hung over their shoulders with tiny pieces of bent iron, which they use in pocking and exploring the variegated blessings of the garbage, throwing items of interest into the sack and selling to target buyers for recycling. There is no reason why the country should be where it is today if we manage our resources properly. And all of us, both young and old, are responsible, either directly or indirectly, to the problem of this country. Herein lies the import of today's interaction. I've been asked to talk on the EFCC and the role of the youth in curbing corruption in Nigeria. It is also pertinent to interpolate that corruption is the reason why power supply in this country is epileptic. We all know the billions that have been sunk into the power project, including the independent power project in Nigeria. It is the reason why our hospitals are still being referred as mere consulting clinics, and our elites, the so-called elites, travel on daily basis for medical checkup elsewhere. No sector of our polity and economy is spared by this malignant cancer. It has equally been identified as a cause of the growing climate of insecurity in Nigeria. I say this because Robert McNamara once said that without development, no society can be secure, because there is a tendency to begin to look at security as entirely a military warfare or weapon issues. But he said that without security, there can be no development, because people cannot be pushed to the limit of intrinsic control, and they will not push back. And clearly, a philosopher who wrote a book titled Primitive Culture, John Beatty, in the opening paragraph of that book, John Beatty captured clearly that there can be no coherent social order unless the social relationships which binds people together were to some degree orderly, institutionalized, and predictable. He concluded that the only alternative to order is chaos. It is important also to state that for many years, the blame for corruption has been whipped on the shoulders of our leaders, some of whom have had stranglehold on power for several decades, some dated into antiquity. And so we have people who have been ministers in the First Republic. They are still relevant today, even though their ideas, their thoughts have become obsolete. It was this realization that the elite have corrupted our society and put us back by words and deeds, that some persons even tinkered with the idea of talking about generational power shift as a way of freeing the nation from the vice grip of the current class of the bourgeoisie. The underlying assumption was that young people hold the key to fighting corruption in Nigeria. This may be true because in the past, young persons were said to be idealistic and even puritanical in the position they took on issues, including issues relating to corruption. But that seems to be changing today. Sadly, there's an increasing number of young persons who have found themselves in position of authority and have even surpassed the older generations in manipulating the process and system in order to further their own ends. Examples abound, and you can see the current issues going on around the country. This is one development that calls for urgent concern. It is also important because young persons in every society are the future of those societies. For me, as a young man, my interest is in the future because I am going to spend the rest of my life there. And so it is important that we take issues of transparency and accountability very seriously. I'd like to also say that a careful glance at the Nigerian situation illustrates the fact that the country appears to be suffering rather from a kind of national psychosis. Little wonder, though an icon of Africa, Nigeria has severally been described as a sick child of the world. 70% of the population of Nigeria is not only rural, but live below the poverty line. 57% only have access to safe water. More than 1/3 of population age 15 and above are illiterate. We cannot develop with this kind of situations. Our leaders remain horribly corrupt. Crime is seen by many as a legitimate avenue for advancement, and people in search of solutions turn inwards to mobilize ethnic prejudice and religious bigotry. That is responsible for the dramatic surge we have seen in ethno-religious crisis that has plagued this country for a lot of time now. As the Guardian editorial of May 21, 2001 observes, the colossal waste of public funds through mismanagement, fraud, embezzlement, and other white-collar crimes have contributed in no small measure to the state of the economy and social services. This is because, as Kofi Annan observed, corruption is an insidious plague that has a wide range of corrosive effects on societies. It undermines democracy and the rule of law, leads to violation of human rights, distorts market, corrode the quality of life, and allow organized crime, terrorism, and other threats to human security and property to continue. Now, the EFCC was established as a response to the challenges the country was facing. It is also important to stress that the prehistory of the EFCC is anchored on the fact that at the dawn of the new millennium, it became clear in the corridors of power that Nigeria has to reform or perish, because the World Wide Web developed a red flag to screen business inquiries coming from Nigeria. So much so that Nigerians were denying access to the emerging market in cyberspace because of what came to be known as 419. Even though the 419 issue did not originate from Nigeria, but started as the Spanish prisoner later. But today, the country suffers more than any other country from the appalling image that has been ascribed as a result of fraud. It might suffice to stress that when you are sighted in an international airport, your green passport singles you out for a demeaning body search, which sometimes degenerate into poking through your private part or tearing your bags with a camping knife. This is one of the effects of corruption on our image as a people. And so the EFCC was established as one of the mechanisms for the prevention, investigation, and prosecution of all forms of economic and financial crimes, including corruption. The Commission was therefore established by the EFCC Establishment Act 2002, which was repealed and reenacted by the EFCC Establishment Act 2004 by the National Assembly. And that act specifically defined the EFCC as a law enforcement agency charged with the responsibility of enforcing all economic and financial crime laws, among other functions. As clearly catalogued in Section 6 and 7 of the EFCC 2004 Establishment Act, the Commission is charged with the powers to prevent, investigate, and prosecute all financial crimes, including advance fee fraud, money laundering, counterfeiting, illegal charge transfer, future market fraud, fraudulent encashment of negotiable instruments, computer credit card fraud, contract scam, and so on and so forth, as well as charged with the responsibility of enforcing the provision of other laws and regulations vested on other agencies that relates to economic and financial crimes. Other laws the EFCC enforced include the Money Laundering Prohibition Act 2011, the Advance Fee Fraud and Other Related Offences Act 2006, the Failed Bank Recovery of Debt and Financial Malpractices in Bank Act 1994 as amended, the Bank and Other Financial Institution Act 1991 as amended, the Miscellaneous Offences Act, the Criminal and Penal Code, as well as other laws or regulations relating to economic and financial crimes in Nigeria. Apart from investigation and prosecution, the EFCC carries out rigorous public enlightenment, parts of which we are doing here today, against economic and financial crimes, and it is done within and outside the country. The Commission utilizes the mass mobilization tool to achieve this strategy. The work of mass mobilization in the Commission is done through the Strategy and Reorientation Units. The major vehicle for community outreach is the National Anti-Corruption Revolution Campaign called ANCOR. The ANCOR slogan, see something, say something, and do something, epitomizes the emerging relationship emerging between the Commission, the youth, the women groups, and diverse anti-corruption coalitions in Nigeria. ANCOR provides a platform for purposeful engagement of the citizenry and a necessary nexus between the state and the non-state actors in the fight against corruption and other forms of economic and financial crimes. It is responsible for advocacy, awareness creation, and fostering public support and participation in combating economic and financial crimes in Nigeria. It also continually scans the public space to determine existing programs or projects that provide substantial leveraging opportunities for the EFCC to forge productive partnership like the one existing between the EFCC and the National Youth Service Corps. Today, as it were, the EFCC remains a leading agency in the fight against corruption and other economic crimes in the West African sub-region. As a result of the Commission activity, the impunities that characterize the days of yore has significantly declined. Those who only recently could not be questioned or touched are today being asked to answer questions on transparency and accountability. And those who a few years ago saw prisons as exclusive reserve for low-level publics are today sharing facilities with inmates in those same prisons. That is how it should be. That is the whole essence of the rule of law. Justice is blind to the rich as it is to the poor. Over the 9 years of the Commission's operations, it has secured over 600 criminal convictions. It has also recovered proceeds of crime to the tune of $11.5 million US. Today, the Commission has well over 900 cases at various stages of prosecution across various courts in the country. For more information on the achievement of the Commission, please feel free to visit the EFCC website, www.efccnigeria.org, www.efccnigeria.org, and www.anchorng.org. Anchor is spelled ANCORNG.org. When I was told yesterday to come, I thought we'll have a hall where I can pictorially show you some of the success stories of people, because I know one of the questions that is going to arise from this interaction borders on people who have a occupied position of trust. And so I thought that I brought a projector. I thought I could project and show you pictorially people who have been convicted and jailed. I have them listed clearly from Olabode George, the Lagos big boy, Cecilia Ebru, the former managing director of Intercontinental Bank, Lucky Benedium, DFP Anamesia, Tafa Balogun, all of them convicted on corruption cases. But again, even with this little modest success, the Commission has a lot of challenges, part of which is the attack on staff, blackmail of the Commission activities has been politically motivated, a slow criminal justice system, inadequate laws on forfeiture of proceeds of crime, the absence of whistleblowing law to protect whistleblowers, the large informal economy that provides fertile ground for the laundering of the proceeds of crime, as well as huge cash transactions which are prevalent and pose challenge for effective money laundering and terrorist financing monitoring. For us to double and increase this achievement, the role of the youth is very important. One critical group that form a bedrock of the stakeholders in the anti-corruption war is the young people. And that is why core members at their various camps across the country today are being mobilized to join and key into the anti-corruption campaign. The crucial question really is that how can the youth enlist in the anti-graft army? This is really very easy. The message of the EFCC to all of you this morning is that you should become whistleblowers in any place where you find yourself by reporting acts that fail the simple test of integrity. There is no use lamenting that things are not bad the way I started if we cannot do something about it. Okay. We are inviting you to lend a helping hand in the building of this country. That is why it is important that you realize that your role and contribution to issues of integrity is very important. I'm aware that some of you by now are already aware that there is an existing EFCC NYSC Community Development Group. We encourage you to join this group because it is a platform that will offer you opportunity for an enduring relationship with the Commission and other stakeholders. That community group will provide an advocacy platform for you to key in and become a change agent. It will also afford the opportunity of molding the characters of younger people in other schools, in secondary schools across the country, in the integrity clubs that have been put in place with the help of the EFCC. You are to be role models and shun all forms of corruption if we are to join this group and make any meaningful impact. As youths, we must take more interest in the affairs of the state. We must be willing to hold our leaders accountable because the future belongs to all of us. As young people, we must, as a matter of urgency, set clear goals and standards for public life by endorsing key principles such as selflessness, integrity, objectivity, accountability, openness, honesty, and transparency, which will eventually lead to the evolution of a safe, just, equitable society where we will live happily amid clatter and chatter. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. David Edgar, for that beautiful presentation on the role of EFCC.
I need to understand that Nigerians have not been performing well in the past. Now, I want to ask, what has the EFCC done to see that they've improved the economy of the Nigerian state in favor of the youth in general? Then my second question is, since the inception of EFCC, has the rate of corruption in the country been reduced or increased? Because I don't really know, there's corruption every now and then going on in the country. What is the EFCC doing? And lastly, sir, the fund realized by EFCC from corrupt politicians, what are you people using it for? Do you return it back to the government or you keep it for your own consumption? Thank you.
Vicky Ozubidike Osamu, FCT code number 0521. My question is this, sir. One, sir, why do we accept plea bargain from corrupt leaders, which we know? Example, former governor of Edo State. Why do we accept that? Secondly, EFCC case have been in court for so long. Why can't EFCC have a tribunal, just like the military, have their own court-martial, have the court-martial their member? Sir, please, I believe if we do this, it will help us in reducing crime. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those questions. The first from core member Francis is that what is the EFCC doing to improve the economy in favor of the youth? I'd like to say that the EFCC is part of the economic reforms in Nigeria. As a law enforcement agency, the Commission is highly committed to ensuring that resources are used prudently to ensure that the economy improves. And that is part of what we're doing here today, to enlighten you to become whistleblowers, because the EFCC role in the economy is like a watchdog to ensure that things are done rightly, and where they are not, the EFCC investigate those persons and bring them before the court for adjudication. And so, in discharging the responsibility that the Act has bestowed on the Commission, the EFCC is contributing to ensuring that the young people are adequately catered to in the national economy. The second question is that you wonder whether corruption has increased or decreased since the inception of the EFCC. If you listen to my presentation, I did say that as a result of the activities of the Commission, the impunities that characterize the days of yore, the olden days, have significantly declined. Today, people do not do those things with impunity because you know that, like we always will say, the EFCC will get you any day, anywhere, anytime. Fraud may provide quick, wealth, but there is misery and gnashing of teeth at the end of the day. If you do not play by the rules, the EFCC will know what you have done, now or later. And as a matter of fact, when we come in contact with people, we know where they have been, we know where they are, and we know where they are going to be in the future. And so I will say that corruption had declined. I remember that
At a certain time, Nigeria was ranked as the most corrupt world in the world. At other times, as the second most corrupt, second only to Bangladesh and all that. There's a need for us to also generate our own data, which is lacking in Nigeria, to get correct perspective of the issue. And then your last question was on recovered funds. The EFCC recovers proceeds of crime. Now, for victims of crime, for instance, if a man is swindled and the EFCC recovers, the proceeds of that crime, it is handed over to the owner or the victim, as it were. Now, if it is government funds, the EFCC pays the money back to the agency involved, the government agency. But funds recovered from federal government are paid back into the consolidated revenue funds. And so the EFCC does not keep recovered funds, does not benefit from recovered funds, even though it's important to stress that in other parts of the world, you have victims of crime funds, you have agencies like FinCEN that keep certain percentage of the proceeds of crime, which they investigate. But because of the very nature of our society, the Act does not provide for that. GK asks about plea bargain, why the EFCC accept plea bargain from corrupt politicians, and cited example. I'd like to say that the slow criminal justice system in the United States led the professor who propounded the plea bargain idea to come up with that process. It's a process that is a shortcut to taking profit out of crime. For instance, where thorough investigation is done, the law allows that you take the proceeds from the person so that it becomes a incentive. And again, the EFCC Act provides for what is called compounding of an offense, given that people want justice to be done expeditiously. But because of the slow justice system, it has led a lot of people to bring the doorstep. Like you're saying, a lot of course I'm going to come to that, a lot of cases have been in court for a long time. Now, the EFCC cannot establish a tribunal on its own. If you had listened to successive chairmen of the commission, including the current chairman, is passionate about the issue of special courts, where designated judges who are trained on corruption cases will man and ensure that expeditious discharge of cases. But today, the EFCC, no matter how well-intentioned, can only process and press appropriate charges. The task of trial, conviction, and on sentencing is constitutionally that of the court, and there is nothing the EFCC can do about it. As a matter of fact, as soon as the commission charges an accused person, it becomes a party. It brings an application, the EFCC brings a counter. The EFCC brings application, the person brings a counter. And so it is only the judiciary that can fast-track the process, because the EFCC has become a partner in that case. It's important for you, as a core member, to put pressure on your representative at the National Assembly to ensure that laws, relating to special tribunals, special courts are passed. Thank you so very much.
Please let's put our hands together once again for the Commission.